What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Struggle to Strength podcast, your source for real life application on how to turn your struggles into strengths in all things mind, muscle, and money. I wanted to bring you on here because we have a lot of coaches that listen to the podcast. We have a lot of entrepreneurs, and I just think you're a plethora of valuable information that they can all learn from. So I think you'll be able to provide a lot of value, man. I'm excited to have you here.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys having me on. I've been wanting to come on for a while now. I love what you guys do, and your podcasts are always hilarious and super informative. So I'm stoked to be here, man.
Hell yeah, man. Nice. So to get started, I mean, not everybody will know you, but I want to give you the opportunity to kind of introduce yourself, tell us who you are and where you come from and how you got to where you are today. I know the story.
Yeah.
But why don't we tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, 100%, man. My name is Caleb Fong. I'm from Sacramento, California. I am 28 years. I feel like I'm on a dating show right now. I'm like... I'm 28 years old and I have a dog. I got into, I guess, the coaching space about 7 years ago now. I was in-person training for about 2 years and then saw the potential of online. I dove in online and I was kind of hybrid coaching, both in-person and online for the first 2 years. And then for the last 4 years, I've been purely online. So I ran my online coaching business, Caleb Fong Fit, for a good 6 solid years. 4 of those were purely online. During that time, we built up an amazing team, built a near 7-figure run rate, which is incredible. Extremely cash flow positive business, which is awesome. We helped hundreds of people. And then at that point, at the end, I kind of got unfulfilled with what I was doing. And something I've kind of like literally always lived by since I was like 16, and why I've had like 18 jobs since I was 16 was like, if something doesn't fulfill me, then it has to go. And at that time, it was kind of a crossroads with, cool, I'm not as fulfilled with coaching fitness anymore or even managing a team around fitness. What I was very fulfilled by was talking to other coaches about their business and how to grow and how to be more successful and how to impact more people. And so it was a clear transition. And so I was lucky enough to have Josh and I as a mentor, our business coach at the time, offer me a position to work side by side with him and coach coaches. And I was like, fuck yeah. So it seemed like the right choice. I moved into that. I sold my coaching business it's been about 8 weeks now ago. Sold my coaching business, dove in the next day, and it's been fucking amazing. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Man, and Caleb has been, like I said, just so helpful for us, having been in the industry for longer than we have and having, gone through different challenges that we were working on getting through ourselves and facing. He was kind of always our little like business coach on the side, because he just knew so much more than we did. And he had just a way of thinking of things that was much more strategic. So we always appreciated having Caleb in our little group chat. It was always nice having you there. And like, we still talk shit all the time. And we're all like, Caleb, what do I do? Help. But always had like you've gone through so much, and you've, endured all sorts of struggle and in building your business, and you've come out on top, that you just had all this shit on lock, like in the back of your head. So while you were building your business, moving from in-person to online and then scaling the online business, we all face different struggles when we're trying to grow something, when we're trying to build something, whether it's our physique, our business, our relationship, whatever it is. What were the biggest struggles that you faced when you first started your online business, and how did those change? Because the problems don't go away, they just change.
100%. Yeah. I would say the biggest thing, and this will kind of lead into answering that question. It's funny you said that about like inside of the group chat, because I was always at least happy to be able to contribute that, because like everyone else in our group chat, for those listening, 10 times smarter than me when it comes to like nutrition and fitness and stuff. And I was always asking questions about coaching. And then when it would come to business, I'm like, oh, I can actually fucking interject this. Like, I know this shit. And so that was really cool. And that's just, again, kind of spoke to like, this is probably what I should be doing.
That's also like, I've found that that's a trait of successful people, And like when you start, especially when you start getting involved in entrepreneurship or whatever, like I noticed anyways, there's kind of like two camps of people. And I don't know that they necessarily know that they're in these camps, but it's like very important to understand. And I think be in the right one and kind of keep an eye out. And it's like, one is a very fear-based camp, which is like, everyone's a competitor of me. Like, I want to be the top. Why would I give my secrets away to somebody? Because then they're my competition. And then the other camp of people is just like, I literally want to help everyone around me as much as physically possible with no expectation of return. And that camp is like the clear winner in my opinion, in a lot of different ways. And I think that that's just like a super important point to like point out, is that you're in this situation and you're probably not thinking necessarily like, oh, I'm going to give them this information so that they help me with this thing. It's like, this is what I have to offer. Here you guys go. And then it inevitably comes back to you in like a lot of different ways.
No, I totally agree. I mean, that's the whole concept of like growing community versus competition, right? Like competition will always be out there and people are competitors in the industry, but like we can be helping each other grow our own community, and that will only further everyone's agenda, and that will only help everyone else grow. And if we can help the industry grow, as like, you know, as we know in the fitness industry, it's kind of a shit community sometimes. Like the industry kind of sucks sometimes. And same with like business in some aspects. And so it's like, if we can further push the community and make it a more positive atmosphere all around, like we all win, like you said. So I wholeheartedly agree. Josh, like, I guess to answer the question, like the biggest struggles, personally was actually trust in the industry. It was more so trust in the industry in terms of like which mentors to choose. Because at that time, so I went through 3 business coaches before I landed on our last one.
Wow.
Which is why I had a lot of that experience and answers, by the way, for like a lot of business questions. I'm like, I've had a lot of coaches before go through this. And so I think it was mainly trust in hiring the right mentor and learning about things the right way. Because I even knew from the beginning that like there was wrong and right ways to go about growing a business and impacting people. But I really didn't know. Like I was so brand new to the online space. I like just started on Instagram. And I was just posting pictures of like my food and shit and like not knowing what the fuck I'm doing. And I'm like, clearly there's a wrong and right way of going about this, but who do I trust to guide me? Mm-hmm. Right. And I think coming from a coaching perspective, it wasn't even a second thought of hiring a coach. It was the first thing I thought of. I was like, I need to hire someone who's doing what I want to do and learn from them. But it was a majority of like a trust issue of who to actually talk to. Mm-hmm. I think that was one of the biggest struggles I initially faced. There's obviously a lot more, but that was probably the most prominent one from the beginning.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people get caught up on kind of what you were talking about, or you alluded to a little bit, is like finding that right coach, finding that right structure, that right strategy. So what's your take on the importance of getting new perspectives from different coaches versus the paralysis by analysis of just trying to find the perfect one? Like, do you just need to pick one and go, or do you wait till you find the perfect one? And do you feel like you learned a lot from getting those different perspectives?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wholeheartedly don't regret any of the coaches that I had, even the first 2 where I learned like nothing. It's like,
you learned what not to do.
Yeah, you know, maybe that's exactly what to do. You know, like, I mean, I kind of give you the timeline, and like, to answer the question straight up, I think you should just dive in. You should do a little research maybe, and, you know, go with someone you think you at least trust a little bit. But like at the end of the day, you're not going to know if you're making the right decision until you're actually in the game. And that's kind of with like anything, right? You kind of actually have to just take action, speed over kind of everything in that aspect, right? And that's like one of the core tenets of like NCI is like speed over everything. It's like make the decision, learn afterwards if it's the right one or not. In some of those cases. So personally, I would say like do a little research in terms of like who you trust and vibe with, and then just pull the trigger. If I had to go do it again, I would do things the exact same way. The first business coach I had was local here in Sacramento, and great dude. He runs an amazing in-person facility, a couple of them locally. And I knew he was doing stuff online. he was my sister's trainer at the time. And I became good friends with him and blah, blah, blah. And I saw he was doing some stuff online. And I was like, what the hell is this about? And he was like, I'm actually hosting like a mastermind. And, you can come in. And I was like, okay, cool. Like it was like $900, I think. I can't remember. And I was like, yeah, sick. This sounds great. There was like 5 other people. And I had to fly to different places to go meet him and like go to Vegas, all these things. I thought it was a badass. I was like, I'm traveling for work, whatever. Really wasn't at all. Total waste of money. And like it just burned a hole in my pocket that I didn't have. But what I learned when I went there, and I only went to like 2 of the meetings because I realized shortly after, I was like, I'm not going to be able to learn too much. No diss to him. He just wasn't, keen to teach that stuff at that moment. But what I did learn was the opportunity at hand. I saw what he was doing with how little he was doing. He was doing like just some basic email marketing, like very, very basic. And I was like, he's making how much money just on basic like email marketing? I'm like, what is the actual potential here then? And I think that's one thing that I learned, like even from that was like the potential of what's actually possible online. And then after that, I was like, all right, let me do some more research and find like a slightly better coach who's been doing this online. And that's kind of how it progressed.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And it's cool to hear that, you just went for it. You learned a lot and you kind of just have to do that. I think action is what's required. It's the waiting isn't going to get you anywhere. Right. You just have to take action. Sometimes it has to be messy. It doesn't matter as long as you just do something. Yeah. And like you said, we have a similar core value at the muscle building method is like speed over perfection.
Right.
It's like, dude, just get it done. Like done is better than perfect. And if it's not perfect, then you'll know why, and you'll be able to fix it for next time. So just get it done. So to all the entrepreneurs, all the coaches, everybody who's listening, who's like been looking for what's next, who's been looking for what they need to do to take their business to the next level, it's usually just action. And if dropping your ego and asking for help is what that means, then there's a lot of people who are willing to help you. And even like Caleb said, even if you make the wrong decision, you're still going to learn from it. It's still going to help. I imagine your business still grew.
100%.
Yeah. So there, you really can't go wrong.
No, truthfully, like, and I believe that like all roads are going to lead you to where you need to be anyway. So it's like, who knows if I didn't go through those coaches, if I didn't end up where I am now, right? Like it all happens for a reason. So I was like, and I even knew that going down those roads, like, okay, I'm firing this coach, going to the next one. It's like, if I didn't have that previous one, maybe I wouldn't have learned about this new one. Right. And it's like, you kind of never know what happens. So yeah, just pull the fucking trigger and then learn as you go.
Yeah. I think a lot of people worry about like wasting time,
Yeah.
And it's like, as long as you have the goal in mind, how are you like, there's no really wasted time. Like,
yeah. And you are wasting time by thinking about wasting.
Exactly.
Time.
Yeah. That's the only wasted time.
Yeah. Oh, I really want to hire this coach, but I just don't want to waste any time or money. And in the meantime, well, I guess my business isn't growing and I'm kind of just wasting time and money. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, dude, it's the same with like, it's funny when we talk about that with like fitness coaching too. It's like, I want to do this when I'm ready and prepare and save time and blah, blah, blah. It's like, and then 10 years later, you're like, oh, I probably should have done this 10 years ago.
Yep. Yeah. Dude, if I could have hired a coach when I first started training, I'd be where I was. I'd probably be where I was like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I would look and feel and be as healthy and like as far along as I am 6 years ago. And dude, I mean, I would pay a lot of money for those 6 years, like a lot, like a dumb amount of money, like money I don't have. I would pay for those 6 years. And that being said, like I've paid money I don't have for help. When I signed up with Jason, I didn't have that money.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a thought in my mind. I knew it's what I needed to do. And so a lot of people are worried about making the wrong decision or spending money that they don't have. And it comes back to kind of what Travis was talking about about in a similar way to sharing our knowledge and sharing our resources. There's an abundance versus a scarcity mindset. And if you're constantly living in a world of scarcity where you're worried about spending money, you're worried about sharing information, you're worried about the competition, then you're not ever going to live in abundance. So what do you have to say about people or to people who are worried about investing in themselves and who are worried about making that next step, who are living from that scarcity mindset perspective?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. We could probably have an entire podcast about that. But man, to be totally honest, like I was having a conversation I was at an event in Virginia like 2 weeks ago with all these coaches, and it was really cool getting down to like being able to sit down with them outside of the event and really talk. And I was talking to this one coach, and she was asking me some of these questions. She was asking me like some more deep, like profound questions about like life and like how we get to certain paths and whatnot. And this was one of the conversations. And she was like, she was saying how she used to be in that mindset prior, not in abundance and kind of a fixed, scared mindset, how she kind of grew. And she literally asked, like, what did you do to get out of that mindset? And it comes from a weird space, but like, I'm starting to align a lot more with like nihilistic behavior, and like nihilism of like thinking and kind of the expectation that in the end, like what you do here sort of matters, but when you're gone, you're gone. And that idea of like, you should probably make the most of the time that you have here and like do something with it and see what happens, kind of play the game. And so I was like, when I was answering that question, it really came down to like, I don't see how you could live a life not having an abundance mindset, not wanting more for yourself, not wanting to live the life that you really want to. Like, you have one shot, like theoretically, like who knows what happens afterwards, but like right now you have like one shot. And it's always been a thought since I was like, again, like since I was like 16 of like, why would I spend my time here like not doing shit that makes me happy and not growing and impacting people? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And, I would ask if you have that kind of mindset right now, which is, sounds kind of like brutal saying that stuff, but like, if you don't, that's fine. You're at that place. I would ask, like, what do you want out of life? Like, truthfully, if you don't want to grow and you don't want to do all these things, you don't want to, impact people, you just want to like kick it at home and that's what makes you happy all day long and like not progress, do you, like, by all means, if that's what makes you happy, like, cool. I can't get behind that, but like, to each their own. I want to see growth in kind of every aspect of my life. But I would ask the question, if you're in that mindset and you're scared of investing, like, what do you really want out of life? If you want to grow and you want to do better, you want to feel better in your health and how you look, you want to do better in your business, it's going to take a level of investment, not only in other people, but in yourself. And if you're not willing to make those investments, then you have to understand the consequences of settling with where you're at and being complacent. Right. So those are like the hard questions we have to ask ourselves when we're stuck in that position. But those are usually the most rewarding conversations to actually have with yourself.
There's basically no such thing as inaction, actually, because like the definition of life is that we're like protons of energy constantly in motion. There's no such thing as inaction. There's no such thing as like doing nothing. That's like a made up.
It's just how life is. Yeah.
So like when you do nothing, you're making a decision and you're going down a certain path and you are moving forward in a certain direction. And that's like important to understand. It's like, what direction do you want to move in? Basically, there's no such thing as like playing it safe, which is kind of scary, but it's true.
And it's funny, usually playing it safe is kind of the opposite. It's like, it's so funny when people talk about, risking a career or whatever it is, like the job they have that they have security in, to go do some shit that makes them like really happy. I'm like, you understand how fucking like backwards that sounds to like a lot of people? It sounds a lot less secure being in a position I'm going to hate the rest of my life. And doing something that makes me unhappy. Like, it's totally backwards.
I think you and I have always kind of like operated in similar ways. We're like, just do what makes us happy. And again, myself as well, since I was a young kid, it's like, why would I spend time doing things I don't like doing? So I got out of college. And by the way, I went to college so I could go snowboarding all the time. Like, I didn't learn a lot in college. I got by. Travis and I went to school together and I went snowboarding 100 days a year. And after college, I got a job that paid really good money and I fucking hated it. Oh my God, I hated it, but it paid me really good money. And after a while I was like, you know what? This isn't worth it. and I quit my job. I moved to Colorado. I took a 50% pay cut, and I started working in tech, and my life got so much better. I had more freedom. I enjoyed what I was doing. I was helping people. I was connecting with people on a deeper level. And then after a slew of surgeries, and you know a little bit of my story, I ended up traveling the world for a while and kind of finding myself, coming back, and decided that I wanted to create even more impact. I wanted to be a health and fitness coach. I wanted to start my own business. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted freedom. And I took another 50% pay cut to work at a 24-hour fitness. And my parents were like, what the fuck is he doing? Like my dad literally at one point was like, Josh, you better figure this shit out, because I'm spending my money. And I was like, oh shit. So, and you know what? I just kept on following what I knew I enjoyed doing. And I followed what made me happy, what made me feel fulfilled. And now I'm making more than I was at my first job, and I'm happy and I'm fulfilled and I have purpose in my life. And I think people are afraid of making that jump because they're afraid of losing something, when really the truth is you're going to die. And you, like, I know that sounds harsh, but you're going to die and you don't know when.
Exactly, dude.
It's not guaranteed. So why would you spend any time, any waking moment doing anything that does not fulfill you when you're going to die?
Yep.
You have one shot.
That's the underlying reason, dude. Like always, like you could crash and burn tomorrow. Like you really never know.
Yeah. And you're not taking your money with you. Like you're afraid of spending money. Money you can always make more of. Always. You can always make more of. Travis and I had done podcasts on this where, like, dude, people make money teaching cats how to use the toilet on the internet.
Dude, anything.
Like, a lot of money.
A lot of money. You can make money doing everything. Money you can always make more of. Time you can never get back. And you're afraid of spending money because you're afraid of wasting time and losing out on a possibility, when really you're losing out on the possibility by not going for it.
Yeah. People are so afraid of betting on themselves, man. And it's sad to see, right? Like we see this all the time in like nutrition space and in business. Like people from when they grew up have just been bred into like seeing failure as such a normal thing of themselves, that they truthfully are not afraid of failure. Like you said, they're actually afraid of what succeeding looks like, right? Which is just terrible.
Yeah.
And like, that's the biggest thing that, I think a lot of coaches, and I'm, speaking to coaches as we, that's our kind of our industry here, like fitness coaches, business coaches, like so afraid of betting on themselves because of how afraid they are of what's on the other side, right? Of failure, which is success, but they've never known that to be like a thing that they trust in themselves and they bet on, that they're so unwilling to even try, which is just so sad. I mean, like what's sad to see is wasted potential, right? Of a person. Like when you talk to somebody, like I know both of you, when you talk to somebody, you can probably have a good inclination of like, man, this person can fucking like do something. Like they have potential to do some shit. Like random people you talk to, like the energy they give off is like, what does this person do? Like, I want to know more about this person. What are they doing with their lives? And like when you see that in people and it's not being put to use, like, damn, like that's just sad to see, because you know that some shit has happened in their life where it's led them down the path of like, I don't really believe in myself, right? Enough to bet on myself. I mean, we see that with nutrition clients too, right? Who like don't want to try a new diet or don't want to try a coaching. It's like, they've never seen success, with this in the past 10 years. So like, why would I bet on myself? I think it's just an agenda, and it's a thing that needs to be shifted. And I think it slowly is.
Yep. I agree.
I think there's also kind of another side of it too, which is the thing that kind of previously, and even now, honestly, has always been my issue. Like I've never had an issue of like believing in myself. Like I've always been very confident in like, if I want to do something, like I'm going to do it.
Right.
My issue's always been like, I have no idea what I want to do.
You know what?
I want to do
problem,
everything.
Man. I want to do everything or nothing. Like it's hard. So
that's my favorite conversation to have.
Cool. Because I'd love to kind of get into that a little bit. And like, I guess maybe start off with like, what did you do before this? And how did you personally know that you wanted to do what you're doing now?
Caleb did everything before this.
I did. I literally did everything. And the shitty answer and the real answer is that I still don't know what I'm really doing or what I really want to do. And
cool. Me too.
And I think that's okay. Like, you know, like I said, it's my favorite conversation to have. And for some reason, I have a lot of conversations with like, I don't know why this happens, but I have a lot of conversations with like high schoolers going into college and college kids like graduating college. Like I have a lot of conversations every month with people who are in those realms. And I don't know why. I don't know what vibe I'm putting off, but like I have those conversations and I love it. And I think I just engage with people that way. And like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what do you want to do? And truth of the matter is like, I mean, you got to look at it like this. Like we look at it as not knowing what to do a lot of the times. And I used to look at it this way as well. Not knowing what I want to do is like sort of a confusing space and a place with no direction, right? Which it kind of is. Let's just be real. Like it kind of is that way, which is totally fine. But the other side of that is just massive opportunity, like massive. The world is literally at your disposal. And so when people are like, yo, I don't know what to do. I'm like, my like second nature reaction is to be like, oh, dope. Like,
yeah,
congrats. Like, that's fucking awesome. Like, that sounds so cool. And they're like, fuck off. What are you talking about? Like, impressed. I'm like, no.
I can't sleep at night.
Yeah. And I'm
like sick. Yeah.
I gotta check myself. I'm like, oh wait, hold on. This is a negative thing. Because like, truthfully, I really do see it that way now. And like my whole perspective has shifted. And it truthfully is like my second nature when someone says that. I'm like, oh shit, like dope. That's such a fun time to be in. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like, well, at that point, you have everything available. And while that can be overwhelming, like you would rather have every option available than be trapped into one that you don't like. Right.
And then fail at that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, and then you're like, all right, now what the fuck do I do? Where instead is if you have all these options, like, dude, you can take the risk. Like you can try shit out. Like Josh was saying, I fucking did everything before this. I tested everything out. I tried so much stuff out.
What are like a few examples of everything?
Yeah, for sure. So like first job I had, like we talked about jobs and then careers that I tried. So like first job I had at 16 was at a movie theater. I quit in like 7 months after like spilling like garbage over me, like while I was throwing out the trash. And I worked at this theater called Regal Cinemas. And one of the guys was like, oh, that's Regal juice. And I was like, what the fuck is Regal juice? He was like, it's the garbage. And I was like, I'm out.
This happens all the time. I'm out.
Yeah. No, I was like, I'm good. And I was like, so I quit that in 7 months. I started working as a server. I was a busser. I was a bartender. I worked behind, I did office jobs. I worked as like admin for like accounting. I did like warehouse shit, like packing. And I was like, I kind of like construction. I was like, started doing like construction shit and like carpentry stuff, and like building shit. I'm like just testing out what like called to me at that time. And like, yes, I do have ADHD. So like, I was like, yeah, dude, I was going to be a magician for like my entire life. Like I dove deep into like magic and I was like, I'm going to be fucking David Blaine, like 100%. And I like tunnel visioned into that. And then one day I was like, this isn't fun anymore. And I don't think I want to do this as a career. And then completely shifted. Like, it's just what happened. So like, I really did test the waters of what called to me because I knew from that young age, like, dude, I can test shit out right now. I know I can. And I didn't really know what the future was going to look like. I didn't know I was going to be an entrepreneur or any of this shit. I truthfully had no idea what I was going to do in my college, like absolutely none. And it was just by chance that I landed into like a personal training position. And that kind of led me down the path of like, maybe I like fitness stuff. Like I've always been into fitness and sports my entire life and active, like maybe I'll like this. So those were just like a few things that, again, those were just a few things that I tried during that time. Before I dove into actually starting like personal training, I was bartending full time. I think I was just bartending full time. I was bartending full time, and then I was like serving on the side as well too. And then that's kind of when I started personal training. So I did both at the same time for quite some time. But that's like the most recent thing I did before personal training was bartending. But like Yeah, man, I tested fucking everything. And then like at the end of the day, landing on fitness coaching, landing on entrepreneurship and all this stuff. Again, I still don't know if this is what I want to do. Like, I don't think I'll ever really know. And I'm totally comfortable with that. Like, I am fine pivoting. I'm fine adapting to how things come. You know, I landed in this position and I love it right now. And I can't foresee myself in the future doing anything else. But like, that may change. And I'm totally okay with that. Like, I was telling someone the other day, like, if this position that I'm in now flopped tomorrow for some reason, I don't have this position tomorrow, I really don't think I would flip out. I really don't think I would be like, holy fuck, the world's ending. I'd be like, what's next? Like, what do we do next? Like, what's the next move here? It's just part of the game, man. Like, it's fun. That's part of life, is being able to adapt like that. You know, one of our friends, Mike Milner, he always says like, adapt or die. And it's like, what else am I going to do? Why would I flip out about these changes happening or be concerned about, you know, a plethora of opportunities in the world when I can just adapt and go with how things are going in my life? And it's like, you have no really other choice, right? Like, why, if you're not going to adapt, you're just going to succumb to the inevitable of like, oh, woe is me, like this fucking sucks. It's like, well, you could do that, or you could start thinking about the next move and the opportunity, right? So it's like thinking about that position you're in as truthfully seeing it as the opportunity that it is giving to you right now. And it truthfully is an opportunity being presented to you, of you getting to choose what really makes me happy. Can I test this out and see if it works? If it doesn't, what's the next thing that makes me happy? Can I test all of these things out and finally landing on something? And I think the bottom line, again, it's just like imposter syndrome. Like, no one really ever gets over it. You kind of accept it. I think it's the same type of thing here. When someone's like, I know I want to do this for the rest of my life, I'm like, I just can't feel that, because I've never really felt that about one particular thing. I just know that whatever is going to happen is going to work out. And that everything along the way is kind of an opportunity in the next step. That's kind of my perspective on that. Again, I could talk on that for like hours. But.
Dude, Travis and I talk about that all the time, especially in previous podcasts. We're like, yeah, so what? Like, if this doesn't work out, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
All
Dude,
good.
there's so many things you can do to make money. And this kind of goes along with like, we don't really know what we want to do. Like, we want to do everything. So if this doesn't work out, and we get a no, that's just another opportunity. That's the next opportunity. Move on. And there's a few things that you said that kind of resonated with me. One is that life's a fucking game, man. Like, if you can view life as just a fucking game and see what you can get away with and how you can play it, that makes it so much more fun and so much less stressful. Because what happens when you lose a game? Nothing. You just play another one. You find another game to play.
Over.
You lose a game of Parcheesi. Cool. Catch me playing Monopoly next time. Like, there's always new opportunities and always new games. And then the more games you play, the more things you try, like you did. I bet that you learned something from every single job, and
100%.
Like, you learned something about what you liked. You know, you learned probably from construction. I imagine you learned that you liked building things. So like building business was cool. From magic, you probably learned that you liked impacting people in positive ways. So like, what were the most important things that you learned from every one of those positions that you've taken with you now? And you're kind of like curating this life of like, this is the shit I like to do.
Yeah, you actually hit it right on the head, dude. Like, magic, 100%. When I was in that, I liked that moment of happiness I could give to people, right? That moment of like, holy fuck, what just happened? And it was sort of like seeing people being able to escape from like whatever bullshit was going on in their life for a second. And that impact I was addicted to. Like, yeah, I love learning new fucking like methods and sleight of hand and tricks and all this shit. But it was like, my whole thought the whole time was like, how are people going to respond to this? Right. Like, and then seeing that, I was like, fucking, like, I'm addicted to that. Like, I love that. And I truthfully believe, like, I was doing that when I was in middle school going into high school. So like, you want to talk about prime awkwardness, like, and being like a full-fledged fucking magician. Cool. And like, that's going to pull all of the babes 100%. But like, I truthfully think that that's what set me off on entrepreneurship, because like, I really felt like I was creating my own business and I wasn't getting paid. I mean, sometimes I was, but like, I wasn't really like creating a business, but I was creating my own little world. And I was like, there's something to this. Like, I really like this atmosphere. And I really think that that's what led me down the path of like, how do I impact more people and do this independent thing that I'm doing now, right? Like, and that's kind of what I took from that. And you're right, with like construction, I love being able to like build stuff, and I love being able to, and that's just like that's a pass by time for me that, you know, I don't have to think about. It helps me zone out, and, you know, like building random shit. Like in our backyard the other day, we were walking around, I'm like, I built like everything back here. Like everything was using back here, I like fucking made. And like, this is cool. Like, that's cool to experience. And it's just like, those things have led me down the path of like, how do I relax more? Like, cool. Now I can interject some of these hobbies. Like if I have a deck of cards, that's literally like a passing by time while I'm like studying or like watching something. I don't even think about it. I'm like doing like magic shit. It's like second nature to me now. And it helps me like relax. And it's like, all of those things, I've learned so many aspects to be able to pull together into my future of whatever it holds. Dude, like bartending and working at Starbucks. Like I always talk about, this was like actually a big thing this past week at the event. We were talking about me working at Starbucks, and it was so funny because I was talking about like how I used to be back then in terms of like my mindset and where it's kind of evolved to. And I always thank Starbucks being like one of my favorite jobs I had, because it really was like to me, like a pivotal job that led me down a series of paths that led me to here. It was like Starbucks. I learned that I love like interacting with people. I really learned to love interacting. And I also love like making shit. So I was like, how can I do this and get paid more? It's like bartending. So I went to bartending. I'm like, I could sling coffee drinks. Let me sling alcohol and talk to people more and make more money. So I did that. And then I was from bartending. I'm like, what do I like from this? I was like, I love the engagement with people. I love getting paid for my work. Right. And those are things that I really took from that. And I was like, how can I do this in association with what I really like to do now, which is fitness? And I'm like, getting paid for my work in dollars per hour. I'm like, I could be a personal trainer. Personal trainer led me to like, how do I make more money with this and impact more people? Online fitness coaching. So it's like Starbucks is really to me like where my start point of jobs that led me down this path. So it's like, I always now have such a big appreciation when I go to Starbucks. I'm just like, it holds a funny place in my heart of being like a starting point for me, right, to actually grow to where I wanted to be. So you're totally right. Like all of those things I've learned things from, and I've really applied. And I don't take any of that stuff for granted. Did
you have like the awareness then of
I was just thinking
what
that.
You just said? Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, because kids don't like kids.
Yeah.
If there are younger people who are listening to this podcast, they're like, yeah, whatever. Like I paint the walls at my high school for $15 an hour. Like, what am I going to learn from this? But
right.
Like they really are.
They really do learn shit.
Yeah, they really do. So did you know at the time what you were doing?
Just looking back? Yeah.
No, I think this is more so looking back. I think at the time I was following my instincts of, I truthfully did do this at 16 years old. I made a deal with myself that if I didn't like what I was doing and I'd rather not be getting paid, I would leave like instantly. And I made a cold fucking contract with myself, and I stuck to that wholeheartedly. And I think I was just following my instincts of like, each time I got in that position of like, man, I'd really rather not be here and not get paid. I'm going to leave. And like, I think I was just following my instinct. And then like slowly later on, I was like, oh, actually like that was a good move on my end. Like I actually did do that for a reason. Like I learned some shit. I think it was also I think it was me being impulsive at the time and like following what made me happy because I was super young. And I'm happy I did that. So no, I don't think I knew it in the moment, but like retrospectively, I was like, this actually made a lot of sense.
I think like you kind of live like two different lives almost. And maybe some people never end up living the second one, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I think like the first one is when you're just going through the motions of life. And the second one is like that moment that you kind of like pick your head up and get that awareness and start looking around and like moving with purpose, I guess. So like the moment for me, it was probably like, I don't know, 27 or 28 years old, is when I started like noticing that, which is just actually being like, okay, what's going on here? What am I doing? Like, what are the things that I like? What am I good at? What have I done so far? Kind of, really like having that awareness and kind of planning ahead. Like I don't think you don't like, I don't have like, what's my 5-year goal or something like that. Like I'm still very much like going with the flow, and I probably will forever, but I am very aware. I have ownership of everything that's going on, and I have like purpose. And that, I think, is kind of when you start living a different life. A lot of people just get on this track of like, even if they do, are like, I want to be a doctor. And it's like, well, did you ever stop to think about anything, or did you just start doing that? And then, I don't know.
Do you, you're mentioning when you were like 28, how old are you?
31.
You're 31 too, Josh? 32?
32. I think around 26, 27. It was during the times where I was going through a lot of surgeries and like really struggling. That's when it kind of hit me. I was like, dude, I almost died. I was like, I don't want to do what I don't want to do anymore.
Yeah, that's wild.
I just started driving that motherfucker. That
puts it into perspective for a lot of people. Like going through something like that must have been just insane perspective shift on your life.
Oh yeah, dude. I was like, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. And I was like, I want to do what I want to do, and I don't want to do anything else. And not even in like a super selfish way. I was just like, I want to be fulfilled. I want to have purpose.
Yeah.
And, just like Travis said, I kind of went from almost like being a passenger to being like, get the fuck out of the driver's seat. Let me drive this bitch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm a baby. I'm 28 right now, and you guys are ahead of me, man.
Yeah, but you learned this shit a lot earlier than me did.
I guess I did.
Yeah. And granted, Travis and I, we just fucking partied our lives away in college and probably just added a few years to that whole timeline for us. But I think we all learn from mistakes and things that happen to us, and we figure out where we want to go in our lives. And we end up really wanting to like Travis said, take ownership and drive and build things and like build a life and curate the life that we want. I think you've done a phenomenal job of that. And, you've built your coaching business, and now you're helping other people build theirs. And so to kind of circle back, I'd like to learn a little bit more about what you've learned during that process and how it's changed what you do now. So like, you talked about trusting your instincts. You talked about being a little bit impulsive in what you were doing and just kind of like going with the flow, which I kind of read into looking back as like sense of urgency. Right. In a lot of ways. 100%. Like you mentioned, like you don't want to do things that don't fulfill you. So there's a sense of urgency in not doing those things.
Yeah. Level 10 urgency, man.
Yeah. Always, all the time. And so I think that's what's made you as successful as you are. But I'm curious in like building your coaching business and going through all of these different areas of your life, these different jobs that have brought you to where you are today. What do you think the most common mistakes people make are? And what are some of the poor strategies that you see in curating the life or in building the business? We can kind of talk about them separately if it's best.
Sure. Yeah. 100%. I think this is actually funny. I was going to ask you guys a question that was proposed to me this past week, and I had a fucking terrible time answering it. It was really hard.
I would love it. Yeah. I would love it.
It kind of leads into this because truthfully, I think like, I don't know if I could say the biggest mistake, but I think one thing that people don't think about, and maybe this is the biggest mistake, people don't think about who the next person they need to become is for the life that they want to live. And I was asked that question by son of a bitch, Mike Milner. And he was like, who do you need to be? He was asking like us as the panel of coaches that were up there. He's like, who do you need to become to be the next, be like the next version of yourself? Who do you need to become to get there and like to get this next part of your life? And I was just like, fuck. And the reason why it was so tough for me is because I don't really think that far into the future. I don't think like 5 years ahead and 10 years. And like, I don't think about the next person I need to be. And I know that's one of my downfalls. Like, I know if I had that in conjunction with being an impulsive action taker and someone like spontaneous like that, like I'd level up and I would do a lot better. Mm-hmm. And so it was really fucking tough for me to answer that question. And I had to really think about it. And even when I was saying my answer, I was like, this is going to be a shitty answer.
Okay, wait. I want to know what your answer was because, truth be told, I had a little bit of help answering this question from some substances, but somebody asked me this question recently, and so we were using some psychedelic assisted therapy, and that's what I'm going to call it. And somebody asked me that question.
I wish I was tripping when he asked me that question.
Dude, you know what? It made everything make sense. It made everything make sense. So I'm curious, what was your answer?
My answer, and I really thought a long time about it. And it's again, I thought it was kind of a shitty answer, but it was my truth, was that I actually needed to start asking myself these questions more. I needed to start actually thinking ahead of in the future instead of just acting on now. And I've always lived that way, but I was like, man, until that question came about, I never really thought about it like that. And I was like, why am I having such a hard day? It was literally me in front of like a room of like 50 coaches with my head down, like, why am I having such a fucking hard time answering this question? And I was like, fuck, it's because I never ask myself these questions. I never ask myself these questions. I never ask what's ahead. Like, who do I need to be? What do I need to do in the future? Like, I never looked ahead. And I was like, fuck, that's kind of the answer. Like, who I need to become is a person that actually does start to plan and think ahead more and like actually imagine what I need to be doing, who I'm going to be with, like the characteristics I need to change to get there. I never really think about those things. And I was like, that's such a big downfall for me personally. And so I was like, I think that's my answer. And Mike was like, that's actually a really good answer. I thought it was kind of shitty.
I think that's a great answer. That would definitely be one of mine as well.
Yeah. But I also think that what we do as coaches, as entrepreneurs, as people who decided years ago that we wanted to be the fucking conductor of our lives, I think a lot of what we do is we're pretty continuously assessing what we like and what we don't, and what fulfills us and what doesn't, and what's helping us get to where we want to be and what isn't. So I feel like we're already doing this. And I think the version of ourselves that we need to become to get to where we want to be is just a better version of what we're already doing. So like you're saying, paying more attention to what is it that's actually moving me forward to where I want to be, and then just double down on that. What is it that's
to learn new shit and like,
you're not going to change who you are. So like, who do you need to be? You need to be a better version of yourself. You need to double down on what works and you need to eliminate what doesn't. And you've been doing that, like you've said a couple of times in this podcast. You've been doing that for most of your life. So I think you're doing what you need to do to become who you need to be to get to where you want to go. But I think that just a little bit more attention to that point of where you want to go.
Yeah,
that's all it is. Because like we do in fitness, like we have an end goal, and a goal, like goals are, in my opinion, kind of stupid sometimes, because the goal isn't going to get you where you want to be. It's the habits, the frameworks that you implement. So if you know where you want to be, well, then you know who you need to be. You know what you need to change. So I think that was a phenomenal answer.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah. And it's pretty much the same as very similar to what I said. I was like, I just need to be a better version of who I am. I need clarity on where I want to go. And then I need to double down on what's working.
I got a question for you. On that note about heading in a direction and goals and that sort of thing. I listened to a great podcast recently, so I know what is quote unquote the correct answer from like a brain science perspective. Okay. But I'm curious what you guys prefer. Do you think that goals should be like shoot for the stars and on the moon type of thing? So they should be as big as physically possible to get you where you're going? Or do you think they should be like very realistic and like achievable and kind of like slowly increase, or kind of somewhere in between?
Personally, I think you should have, and this is now going into like business mode and thinking how I operate like business wise, realistic goals that lead to a bigger goal is usually like, I think the fine winner between, in my personal opinion. I used to think of like shooting for the stars and kind of, kind of seeing where I land type of thing. But then I realized doing that, like I ended up doing like nothing. Like I didn't really take action on stuff because I saw it as such a grandiose goal and it was so unattainable. And now I think of things of like, cool, I'm making $500 this month. I want to make $600 next month, right? Like a short-term perspective of like what's actually realistic and knowing that'll lead me to a place in the end. So I'm leaning on more of the side of like smaller realistic goals, but maybe somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of times, you know, I'm glad that you used that as an example, because something that we've talked about a lot is the shifting of the goals. And so, you know, not to be a total gym bro and relate this back to the gym, but like when you're lifting weights and you're aiming to build muscle and strength, progressive overload is a required stimulus. So you need to be increasing the amount of weight you're lifting and the number of times you lift it. But if you're not also paying attention to the other variables of your movement, then you're going to end up burning out. You're going to end up getting hurt. And so similar to business, if you're constantly only focused on making more money next month than you did this month, number one, you're going to get burnt out. Number two, you're not going to have a life, and you're going to realize that there's more to it than just constantly chasing that one goal. So, you know, recently we like at the Method, I took a step back. And I realized that I needed to bring other people in to, and that was my goal. I was like, you know what? I am burning out, kind of like you were.
Yep.
And I was like, I need to work less and I need to focus more on the things that are going to help the business grow.
Yep.
So the goals shift. And I think you're right. Like having a longer term goal with smaller steps that are going to get you there. And those smaller steps constitute smaller goals. You know, in March, one of my goals was to hire another assistant coach.
Yep.
And I did. It was to release another free program. And I did. And it's that, what we call like the boring work. It's all that stuff. It's growing the Facebook group. It's growing your reach. It's expanding your audience. Those are all goals as well. But I think the same thing with fitness is people get so caught up on the 20 pounds they want to lose or the 50 pounds. Yeah. That they forget about all the shit that's right in front of them. Dude, when you put directions in a GPS, you don't put the final destination in and then swipe forward on your Google Maps to and just look at it while you drive.
Right.
No, you look at the individual steps. So those are each goals in themselves. You know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And dude, I was Travis. Before I want to know the right answer from a science perspective. It's like, you know, and Josh will understand this because we just talked about this at our 1 day intensive. We host these like 1 day intensives out of business, and like it's really talking about what you just asked, Travis, which is like, you know, we asked for coaches to come up with like a quarterly goal, like our next quarterly goal. And then we assess if that's realistic based off of their previous months. And then what we do, and so that becomes like their grand goal, right, is for the quarter. And then we give them very few actionable steps to achieve that goal in the quarter. And it's like, those are their mini goals. And so like we have a understanding and we change this dynamic. It used to be like what they wanted for the year, going about it like their grand mission. Okay, I want to make, you know, $1 million. It's like, great, that's how we kind of mapped out these days. Instead, we realized like, man, we were giving these goals that were so grandiose that people couldn't see the process in between. So we narrowed it down to like 4 smaller goals for the year and then tinier goals in between that became more realistic. And like the success rate went through the roof. Like, you know, it's much easier to obtain. Like Josh, you said, like those tasks you had, it's like, this is all I have to focus on. And it's like, it's really simple shit that's going to create big waves inside of your business. I gave this analogy yesterday on the spot, and I'm so fucking proud of myself. I was on
I love analogies.
Yeah, I love it. I was on a Facebook Live, and I gave this analogy, and a couple people in the comments were like, "That's an amazing analogy." I was like, "Sick!" I literally just thought of it. I was talking about, you know, we were talking about fitness in general and like how to create bigger changes and all this fun stuff, trying different diets, all that. And I was like, I related it to casting like a big stone into a lake and how that creates like such a big wave. Like one or 2 or 3 big stones into a lake casts such a big wave. Instead of someone else throwing like 100 little pebbles and you see like nothing happen, right? Little ripples. I'm like, that's what most people do, is they cast hundreds of stones at their objective and hope something's going to land. And they try hundreds of things before realizing it's really just one or two things. And if they would have just casted one or two or three big stones into that lake and that they knew were going to be effective, it would have created a lot bigger waves inside of their life, inside of their business, or whatever it is. And that was the analogy I gave. And it's like very similar here, right? Like you asked, which one is better? Which one do you lean towards? I'm like, I think to me, and like Josh was saying, it's kind of a nice medium, right? It's kind of in between. So now I want to know like the real answer.
Yeah, no, you guys are spot on. So this comes from like studies from Stanford. And what they found is like achieving a goal, like a big lofty goal, like I want to be a successful entrepreneur, is going to come down to like consistency and motivation over an extended period of time. So it's like, how do you stay motivated? And I think it's an important point, because a lot of people, you get fed this like idea that you need to like shoot for the stars and you should have these massive goals. And it's like, maybe you should do that in a short-term practice to create like an idea of where you want to go. But what they found is like by like an extra 300% success rate, it's goals that are like just outside your comfort zone. So it shouldn't be, so to relate that to fitness, maybe it is 20 pounds, maybe it's 100 pounds. Like for some people, losing 20 pounds might be the equivalent of like starting $1 billion business. Sure. It just seems so out of reach for them. But like, getting on the treadmill might be like really easy. So it's like, okay, let's lose 5 pounds, for instance. It's like that's a random example, but it's and that's individual. That has nothing to do. For somebody, doing $1 billion business might be just outside of their comfort zone. And so that's something you have to keep. It's like, well, Mark Zuckerberg did this. And it's like, well, you're not Mark Zuckerberg. Like what makes you uncomfortable? You know what I'm saying? So, and what situation are you in? So that's what they found is like, it's basically goals. Like, you look at the overall goal and it's like, what's the next step that is like, kind of go up in increment until you get to the point where you're like, I might not be able to do that, but I probably can. That feeling right there, that's like the sweet spot for goals. And then like visual, like you want to like visualize where you want to go. But another kind of interesting point from that study is like what they found is for long-term motivation, what actually visualization of like getting there is really motivating in the beginning, and then it basically drops off after time. But one thing that kind of is continuously motivating is like visualizing what failure would feel like, not like visualizing yourself as a failure. You should do the opposite of that, but like visualizing what failure would look like. So if it's a fitness goal, it's like, if I don't achieve this goal, like what am I going to look like next year type of thing. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that visualizing failure like that. We had a guy, Jay Thuft, who on our podcast, who specializes in mindset coaching for Olympic athletes, and that's part of what he does. Is he helps them visualize their success and visualize failure, and attach different parts of their identity to that failure. When understanding, like, hey, if you don't reach that goal, like the whole world is not going to come down on you.
Right.
And that kind of takes a lot of pressure off. And when pressure is on, a lot of people don't make very good decisions. They don't think very logically or in a way that's conducive towards their goals. So, I think that's a valuable just practice, is like set goals that are just outside your comfort zone that you have a good chance of achieving. And even if you don't, it's like that shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you land among the stars kind of thing. But maybe not quite the moon. Maybe like, we're in Colorado. Maybe we shoot for like Sacramento.
Yeah.
And even if we miss, we'll like land in LA.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We'll be like close enough. We'll still hang out. Yeah. Well, man, dude, Caleb, I really appreciate you coming on and taking time to chat with us. As always, like it's always a good time talking to you, and we're definitely going to have to find a time to link up and continue. But before we take off, I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of like leave the listeners with some words of advice or just some final thoughts, as well as kind of plug yourself and let people know where they can find you, learn more about you. Because like I said, we got a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of fitness coaches. They're definitely going to want to get in touch with you and learn more from you like I have.
Yeah, 100%, man. One thing to make known is I have absolutely nothing to sell you. So if you ever reach out to me, I'm no longer I won't make you a pitch. I won't make you an offer. I will gladly give you as much free advice as you want. Definitely stole that from like Alex Hormozy.
I was going to say
nothing to sell. And I'm like, you know what? I don't either. I actually don't have an offer anymore. So it's like, I could bring people into like boardroom and all this cool stuff, but like, I don't make those offers. So it's like, I really don't have anything to sell you. So when I am talking to you about, business and stuff, I'll wholeheartely give you my best advice possible. So please reach out to me. On Instagram is Caleb D Fong, CalebDFong. That's going to be the easiest place to contact me. You can reach out to me anytime you want on there and consume my content. Also been pushing on TikTok a little bit harder. So we'll see each other on there.
Yeah.
That's where you can find me. If you're in the area or you guys want to come, anyone's listening, we're hosting an event in April 8th, 9th, and 10th, I believe, whatever that Friday, Saturday, Sunday is. It's called Coaching Con. I'll be speaking on the last day. I'm going to be the last speaker. It is an absolutely ludicrous lineup of people that are going to begin presenting and speaking. We have Ed Milet, we have Alex and Layla Hormozy, we have Rob Bailey, and a couple other amazing people speaking at that event, all under one roof. And the tickets are like dirt cheap. So we have almost reached capacity. But if you want to come, we're at Arizona in Scottsdale, and it'll be an amazing time to learn more about the industry and honestly just upgrade your life. Like, there's a lot of people coming to that event who aren't even coaches, which is really cool to see. And it's called Coaching Con. There's a lot of people who are coming to because the speaker lineup is so ridiculous and everything that we're going to be talking about. So if you want to come say what's up in person, we'll be there as well. But that's where you can contact me. Any last words of advice that I could give or things? I mean, honestly, man, like it's a sum up of what we talked about. Like, ask yourself what you want in life. And like, if you're not doing that right now and you're not on a path to at least try to obtain that, it doesn't even have to be like a career. Like, what do you want to feel like at the end of your life? Like, what moments do you want to have in your life that you can reflect back on and say that I did this thing correctly and, I made my most time here. I'm starting to think a lot more in perspective after listening to Alex talk a lot. He talks a lot about like nihilism. I don't know what that is, but like he talks a lot about that. And recently, and I'm starting to hear that a lot more often and think about end of life type of things, which is really sounds morbid, but like, thinking about like, what do I want to have looked back on my life and been like, I did that shit. Like I had a great time and I impacted people and, whatever it is, those are my things that I want to think back on. It's like, I took care of my friends and family. Like I had a good time. I had an amazing time here. I experienced things. I impacted hundreds of people. Like if I can accomplish those things when I'm laying on my fucking deathbed or whatever it is, then I'll be happy. And now I'm trying to just wedge everything I do in my life against those thoughts. And I don't know where I'm going to be business wise, what I'll be career wise. I don't know, but that doesn't really matter. All that matters to me is how I end up feeling about my life. So I just encourage people to think about not necessarily even what they want to be doing, but how you want to feel in your life at the end of your time and start wedging everything you do against those feelings. That would be my best advice to leave on at this moment.
I think those are very wise words, man, and very valuable advice. I think if people paid more attention to how they wanted to feel and less on what they wanted to do and who they wanted to be perceived as, this is all about you. This is your life. So live it and do what you want to do and fulfill yourself and do things that make you happy. And I think as long as you chase that, and you're not hurting anybody in the process, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Then you're also not causing anybody harm. That's all.
Yeah.
Big plus.
Yeah. Do what you want. Don't hurt other people. Take care of yourself. Take care of others. But yeah, how you want to feel. I think that's a really important sort of metric to live your life by. So I appreciate the last words, man. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. Like Caleb said, for those listening, that Coaching Con lineup is going to be absolutely stacked. I'm going to really try to figure out a way to get there. I've got a client who is competing on April 9th in Vegas.
Oh,
So a little back and forth action. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But no, I highly recommend everybody give Caleb a follow. Check out Coaching Con. Check out NCI. What they're doing is just phenomenal and helping so many people. So if you're interested in impacting people in a positive way, then Caleb is your man. So Caleb, thank you again for joining us. And thank you everybody who's listened to this another episode of the Struggle to Strength podcast. We will see y'all next week.